beef and dairy is just an incredibly energy intensive process. So if we can use spent grains to offset even a small amount of impact that industry has, then I'm all for it.
And that was Holden from Against the Grain, New England, on this week's episode of Brew Roots.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Brew Roots, where we tell the stories behind your favorite beer. This is Sound Guy Ryan, and joining me today is Matt.
Yeah, Erica's still taking care of her dog, or we recorded 2 episodes in a row. You be the judge. Yeah, but what a awesome episode with Berkshire. Thank you again to Gary for doing that. We really do appreciate it. And if you listened to the intro from last week, you know what hell we went through.
Yeah.
But major shout out to Holden and Yigit for hauling themselves in from Boston to come and do this episode here at Small Pond Studios, the best studio in the whole world.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
I'd like to think if Jimi Hendrix was still alive, he'd probably exclusively record at Small Pond Studios.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
We don't know.
We can hope.
I hope. So what's up, Sound Guy Ryan?
Not much. Still drinking some pretty good beer. I got a Lollipop Forest in my hand.
From Deciduous.
Now,
I like them.
This is the blackberry lemonade one, and I will be completely honest. I am not a huge fan of it.
Okay, that's okay.
But it's not bad. I'm not saying that it's bad. It's just not for me.
I'm trying to get my hands on their caramel apple lollipop variant.
Yeah.
Which, am I trying to get my hands on it at the same time? I'm like, do I need that? Do I need that? I want it.
You do want it. I think we all want it.
I know. So Ryan.
Yes, Matt.
You know, Halloween is coming up tomorrow. The
Yeah.
spookiest day of the year.
Spooky.
And last year, we were at Cambridge Brewing Company.
Yes, we were. I was dressed up as a ghoul.
As a ghoul.
Yeah, I hated every moment. It's kind of like what your pets feel like when you dress them up into costumes. That's how I felt after like getting my face painted and shit.
So this year, Erica and myself are going to be Sound Guy Ryan.
And I'm going to be just me.
Yeah, so we're going to have you'll see it on Instagram, but all 3 of us are going to be dressed up as Sound Guy Ryan.
I can't wait.
Which is not hard for me because I have a lot of the same shirts as Ryan, and I just need to get long hair. So I've been eating Rogaine to get long hair like you, Ryan.
Excellent.
To execute. Yeah.
You still got a ways to go. We'll see if you make it.
Yeah. You know what that means for you, though, Ryan?
I'd like to think nothing.
Well,
I'd feel more comfortable if I could just get to live my Halloween as me and no one else.
I was going to say, I feel like Halloween is the official end of pumpkin season for beer.
Does that mean I can buy like a whole bunch of pumpkin beer and just like smash it or throw it in a fire pit?
If you want to waste money, sure.
Okay, I didn't know where you're going with this then.
I was just saying you should be like rejoicing. Like, no more pumpkin beer.
Oh,
It'll be replaced by like stouts and other beers.
Yeah, those other spiced beverages during Christmas and
that you
Thanksgiving.
love.
Those ones aren't as bad depending on what they are.
Yes.
Because I can find a lot of them that I enjoy because they're very subtly spiced. Like they'll have a little nutmeg or something thrown in there. It's super, super light. Or the flavor will come from the yeast, so they're really not spicing it. They're just choosing a yeast that gives off those clove flavors, other spices.
Yeah. Maybe some spruce tip IPAs.
Yeah, that's right. Spruce tip IPAs. I do like me a good spruce tip IPA.
You do. Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, if you are going to be doing anything for Halloween, stay safe and
be safe, definitely.
And don't get spooked by a ghoul.
And don't take candy from strangers.
That's right.
Or beer. Or actually, no, take the beer. Definitely take the beer.
Yeah. So this week's episode, we talk about sustainability. Our friend Holden and Yigit are really into that, and they're starting a new company. And a lot of our friend breweries are on board with this. So Brado, Lamplighter, just to name a few. So Essex County Brewing Company.
Okay,
yeah,
there's a few.
That's a couple. Yeah.
Oh no, that was a few.
A few?
Yep.
Just a few. But they're looking to get some more breweries online. And it's kind of a no-brainer, their business, I have to say. So
yeah, it just makes like business side of things on both ends. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, why wouldn't you do it?
And our friend Rob from the Eco-Friendly Beer Drinker is on board with them as well, and he's part of the Mass Brew Bros, and they share a little bit of information about them as well. So make sure to get more information if you like this episode at their website, which we will leave in the doobly-doo below.
Yeah, and I think that's all we got to talk about.
That's all we got to talk about. Ryan and I have to go eat chicken wings and prepare
for an interview.
Because we are wild here at Brew Roots tonight.
Yeah, we've probably done 6-7 interviews in the past couple weeks.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Thank you to everyone who's helped us out.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers. And shout out to these microphones and this new equipment that we got, Ryan.
Hell yeah.
It sounds awesome.
That's right. That's what I wanted to bring up. You know how you can make us pay for this shit that we went in debt for? Is to go on our Patreon.
That's right. Patreon.com, Brew Roots Podcast, and you can, do things like buy us a beer.
Yep, there's a buy us a beer option, and there's a couple other tier options where you get some swag
from local breweries,
and us.
Yep,
which is awesome. And yeah, it just really, if you like what you hear, please help us and support the podcast, because every dollar counts. It really goes a long way.
And we're not asking for that triple IPA that's $12 at a brewery. We're just asking for the $5 Pilsner.
Yeah.
Oh, I said it like you, Ryan. Pilsner.
There you go.
I'm turning into you. Well, I think we're going to go on to this episode because it's a little bit of a long one. And this is one of those episodes where I think you got to listen to with a clear mind, because there's a lot of information.
Yes.
Without further ado,
cheers.
All right, everyone. We are in the middle of fall, Erica.
We are.
And you're a homeowner.
Indeed.
And you've been raking your leaves?
I haven't started yet. I'm scared.
So last weekend, I started raking my leaves.
Good for you.
You know why I started raking my leaves?
It's smart to start early because there's less at the end.
Yes. Well, I wanted to compost successfully this season.
Oh, that is a good thing to do. I have not tried that before.
Yeah, you should.
I should.
Yeah, because your lawn over the winter doesn't want leaves on it.
Well, that's why I rake them and throw them out in the yard. In the woods.
In the woods.
Yeah.
To compost them.
Yeah, so I guess they compost naturally. I just don't then use the compost.
Well, you're missing out.
I don't have a garden yet, so
next year there's always
next year.
But there's always next year.
Goals made.
We are here with Against the Grain. Is it NE? Against the Grain NE? Or is it
technically, yeah.
Technically,
yeah. So it's technically Against the Grain New England.
New England.
Yeah.
Ooh.
For those who didn't know, NE does not stand for New
Environment things.
Yeah, it stands for New England. And we're here with Holden and Yigit.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on, guys?
Not a whole lot. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you guys
really appreciate it.
Drove all the way from Boston to Small Pond Studios. So.
We did, yeah. Actually, just hearing Erica mention trees made me jealous.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
I think there's a total of 3 trees in my neighborhood.
Good. Well, keep. I don't know where I was going with that.
Keep on treeing on.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
on.
That's what I said to all of my fans. Keep on treeing on. But this is an important episode for us because we did an episode earlier with Rob of Eco-Friendly Beer Drinker, and I said it right. That's amazing.
You did.
You really did.
And Mass Brew Bros. And we did an episode on sustainability. And if you listen to our podcast, you know that we are very conscious about sustainability. Not to the level that Rob is. Rob is will not drink a canned beer, which...
Yeah, he's next level, which is really good. I'm really, really proud of him for doing that. That's cool stuff.
Yeah, I wish I was that, committed to the
Takes
craft.
some real dedication.
Yeah.
Yep.
But what you guys are doing caught the attention of Rob. And we were like, well, if it's catching the attention of Rob, we should probably talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah, and it must be pretty cool.
It must be pretty cool. So we start every podcast by asking our guests their first memory of beer and their role at the brewery. You guys don't own a brewery, but what's your role at your company?
Well, I guess I'll go first. So, my role...
And introduce yourself, your name.
Holden.
All right.
Yep. My name is Holden. Holden Cookson.
Yep.
My role at Against the Grain is, well, it's many things right now. I'm wearing practically every hat except for Yeat's hat. Right now it's major sales, talking to breweries, getting folks to sign on for our service, setting up the infrastructure and supply chain on the back end to actually execute that service and kind of fine tuning that service.
So if you were to like take a checklist, you would probably check out like 90% of the things that you do on the list.
90%, and then the 10% is Yeet helping herd the cats that are in my mind, and
solid
Yeah.
10% right
keeping a
there.
calendar,
Yeah.
helping me code things, Excel spreadsheets.
I'm basically the finance and the data side of things, where we're looking at like how the brewers are doing, how we manage the operations that are coming in, and how we manage the supply and the demand, basically.
Yeah. Before we get into the nitty-gritties of the company, what's your first memory of beer?
First memory of beer. Actually, probably not my first memory of beer, but my most early vivid memory of beer was my junior year in college.
Okay.
The Frisbee team at my university had a house party, and I didn't drink until I was 23.
Good
Okay.
for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And this really timid freshman comes into the party. We ended up being lifelong friends, or I guess we've been friends since. I'm only 28.
I was gonna say, oh man, your life's already over. That
I'm
stinks.
45.
Yeah.
You just can't tell. And he walks in, and another Frisbee player hands him a red Solo cup, or hands him a beer. And I could just immediately tell, like, having been that freshman, I was like, man, he does not feel comfortable. So I grabbed a Solo cup and I handed it to him, and I was like, no one ever questions what's in a Solo cup. And I took his beer, and he was like, thanks so much. And that was my first experience with beer, which is that I can remember, which may not be a positive memory of beer, but it's, I think it had a pretty big implication of my, experience with beers.
That's the first like good guy beer story.
Yeah, it
other
really
than
was
like,
actually.
yeah, like,
My dad gave me his beer and it was disgusting.
I remember getting
3.
shit faced in college. Yeah, like,
Right.
that's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
For me, I was like 15 years old
Okay.
in like a rural town in Turkey.
Yep.
And me and my friends, I went to my like buddy's summer house, and we went to play pool, and they all like ordered a beer even though they were underage too.
What's the age of drinking? Yeah, yeah.
The drinking age in Turkey is 18, but
Yep.
they were like 16, I think. And they were like, yo, bro, this tastes like amazing. And I was like, okay, I'll get one too. And then I like tasted it, and I was like, I cannot drink that.
This
I
is
was
not
like,
amazing.
This is not great.
I think I took like 4 like very hard sips.
You should
but-
know when anyone says, "Yo, bro, this is amazing."
Yeah, right. Don't trust those people.
Yeah. It's like the first time I did dabs. That's exactly
Yeah,
what it was.
right, right.
Not fun.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. So it's interesting. I think a lot of people hear the name of your company and they go, well, that could be a million different things. I wish I named Brew Roots the name of your company. It's a way better name than Brew Roots. But what is your company? I mean, we've kind of
Yeah.
flirted with, sustainability, but what is it?
Yeah, I've said the service quite frequently already. But it's funny you say that as well, that Against the Grain really could be anything, because when we applied for the license, like the actual LLC, there were, I don't know, like 30 Against the Grains just in New England. And 2 of them were beer related.
Yeah.
Or actually grain related. So we were lucky to actually get the title we got. How
many were like poorly ran Facebook pages that like nobody
Right.
maintained?
They were all,
Yeah.
no, I shouldn't say they were all pretty bad. I mean, they were decent, but there were some that, like, we had to, navigate the actual Instagram, title getting process. And I was like, oh, we can't use this one. We had to, it was a whole process in getting our actual domain and stuff too. But, the service is, we manage spent grains from breweries, and we manage them in the most sustainable way possible at this time, which is bringing those spent grains to farmers. When you, and I'm sure a lot of listeners can probably identify this, when you manage a brewery, spent grains are a huge hassle. You can pretty much throw them your options are, you can throw them in the garbage, you can have somebody compost them, you can create a relationship with a local farmer, or you can, create brew crackers or pizza dough or bread or whatever. You can create products. And those options are pretty tailored to what's referred to as the food waste hierarchy. At the very bottom is landfill, Above that is waste to energy. Above that is composting. Above that is anaerobic digestion. Above that is feeding animals. And above that is feeding humans.
Okay.
And
Anaerobic digestion, can you, for our listeners and myself that doesn't know what that means?
yeah, so anaerobic digestion, most people are familiar with composting.
Yep.
Anaerobic digestion is like composting on steroids.
Okay.
So pretty much what you do is you take food waste, you slurry it, you turn it into this like really disgusting food waste milkshake. You introduce bacteria to that milkshake, which makes it even more delicious.
yes.
Yep.
Have you drank it?
God, no.
Okay.
Oh,
Just wanted
damn it.
It doesn't look as good as it sounds.
Okay, yeah.
Let's just say that. And you introduce bacteria to it. Those bacteria produce biogas, and then you power engines. They're pretty much just like giant truck engines that are typically connected directly to the grid. For the company I work for right now, full time, AgriCycle Energy, they have 3 1-megawatt engines that are connected directly to the grid. So as they're producing energy, which ends up being annually about 1,500 homes for 100% of their needs, it's being distributed amongst the New England ISO grid.
Jesus.
ISO grid.
Yeah, it's a fancy term.
That is fun.
Yeah. So, not every kid grows up and tells their parents, "I want to save the environment." Was that something that was that the plan all along for you? What did you go to college wanting to be? And Yeet, same question for you.
Yeah. What was your...
I mean, I've been an environmental person my whole life. I'm vegetarian, and I don't know. I like to think that I try to save the environment as much as I can, even though like we obviously live in like a huge house and like we fly from time to time. But I think this company is I'm proud to be the co-founder of this company because like it does a lot of diverting resources from landfill to actual productive needs, I guess.
But I'm more or less, what was 13-year-old Yeet? What did 13-year-old Yeet want to be when he grew up? It wasn't something involving beer and an environment, I'm sure.
He did not know.
Yeah.
I mean, 20-year-old Yeet did not know what he wanted to do,
Yeah.
and
28-year-old Matt doesn't know what he wants to be, so don't worry. 29.
right.
I think most importantly, most important attribute of Yeats that brought us together was that he drives a Prius.
Okay.
Oh, solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, despite all the things he
Yeah.
just said, he
Yeah.
drove a Prius. So
Right.
that kind of ticked all the
Yeah.
boxes
So
that I needed.
I give my Prius to Holden every time he goes out of state.
Perfect.
So Yeet, I am curious. Sustainability in Turkey, is that a thing? Is there a big environmental push for sustainability?
I wouldn't say there's a big environmental push, but there definitely is like a growing sense of knowledge and a higher consciousness about it. But I wouldn't say like there's a big push.
Yeah. Yeah, Holden, I'm just going to volley the question
Sure.
back to you. Like, has environmental and sustainability always been in your lifestyle, or is that something that you just fell in love with in college?
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't say I definitely didn't have any interest in high school, but, in high school, I wanted to study art. I went to art school for a year. I fucking hated it.
Yep.
The school ended up going bankrupt.
Cool.
Actually refunded like a lot of my loans because they were like super corrupt, taking
Oh, thanks.
advantage.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right in the height of the housing market crash, pretty much, or I guess the
Perfect.
first recovery of it. Anyway, decided to move back home, worked as a janitor for 2 years, full time while going to community college, and wanted to do something with wind power. So I was studying that, and I was like, shit, this requires a lot of math. A lot of math.
Yeah.
And
I'm
go
guessing you're not
figure,
good at math.
starting
Is
a-
math not your thing?
Well,
right.
it's
Decent. I'd say.
I'm decent at math.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Like, you can
But
divide.
but like higher concepts of like mixing and matching and referencing
Like
one
physics.
thing, and like he can't like manage multiple subjects at the same time.
right.
Yeah.
That's the cats in my head.
He can
that
do like a simple
manages.
calculation in his head off the top
Yeah.
of his head. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's
thanks
pretty.
for that.
That's pretty good.
Thanks for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can feel the
No,
love.
that's great.
yeah.
And so tried to study wind, didn't work out. It was too much math. But I had this humanities class and this professor just always brought up all these issues. Like every single day, it was just these huge, like, just gargantuan problems in the world. And I asked him, like, what can anybody do? Like, every single day you come in and you just, like, fuck my day up.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, you like this subject? Well, here's how it's racist, or here's
Yeah.
how it's environmentally terrible. Oh, you like avocados? You're supporting, Mexican drug cartels. Oh, you like just every single day. I hated it.
Great.
And so,
Oh man, what if you said you like puppies? Like,
Right.
you'd be like puppy mills.
he'd hit you. He'd hit you with something, and
Yeah.
you'd be like, fuck.
Don't you hate and love those people?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, he's just like super woke, and that,
Super woke.
I loved it because it did bring my attention to a lot of really important shit. And I think the problem with studying those types of issues and really thinking in depth as a consumer is, what are the issues with my consumerism? Like, oh yeah, I love beer, for example. Let's go back to Rob. Rob loves beer, and then he started thinking like, well, what's my impact as a beer drinker? Oh wow, my impact is pretty large as a consumer. How can I curb that? Okay. But I asked this professor of mine, like, what's the solution? Like, you only ever give us problems, right? You're only ever educating us on the problems of the world, not like the solutions at hand.
Right.
And he was like, policy. It's all driven by policy. And I was like, well, that doesn't really require a lot of math, and it requires being a people person, which I'm a people person, and I like problem solving. And so I decided to switch to the University of Maine at Farmington and study environmental public policy and planning. There I met a pretty influential dude, Mark King. He works for the DEP in Maine, and he also runs the Maine Compost School. He's a pretty well-regarded compost guru of the United States, and I had no idea of his like importance in that realm until I graduated, pretty much. But I got to work under him for all 4 years of my education. Managed, I fell into like the composting program at my school, ended up managing all the food waste that was produced by the dining hall, as well as the local high school as well. And I don't really know why I liked it. I've always liked hard work. I shouldn't say I always like hard work. One of my like most vivid memories growing up is crying while being told to wheelbarrow cement for my uncle's pool company. Like, I remember just crying. And my mom was always able to, when I would complain, she'd be like, oh, it's okay, and like divert. And you're like, oh, we won't do that. Working for my uncle building pools, it was like, I was crying, wheelbarrowing cement, and he's like making me do more and bitching at me about how I'm not doing a good job. So I shouldn't say I liked hard work, but I liked hard work in college, and I just ended up hand shoveling food waste and doing the dirty work that no one else would do. And I think there was some pride in that. Like, yeah, I'm doing this thing that
Making an impact almost.
I'm making an impact, and nobody else is willing to do it. So that like sets me apart. Like, we tried to get some interns to, shovel dead turkey carcasses after things, like they quit, like it just didn't work out. But I ended up really enjoying that and decided to focus my entire education around food waste. And what I realized it was the one of the biggest impacts you can have as a consumer is to curb your food waste habits. Growing up, a lot of it was having the most fuel efficient car or having the right light bulbs in your house. And
or like recycling
or
versus
recycling.
Throwing it away in the trash.
Exactly, right. I grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s. Those were the big topics, but food waste and composting was never a topic. But what I realized through my education was one of the biggest impacts we can have is through, being aware of our food waste and diverting food waste from landfills. It was pretty simple. Small action, big impact. Whereas most things in your life, it's kind of like, I can do a lot of work and still have a very little impact. Like, I can worry about the type of detergent I use in my house until the cows come home. But at the end of the day, like, what's my real impact? Food waste, for a very small amount of action, can have a huge impact.
Before we get into what your education and kind of what you wanted to do with your education, let's just take a quick word from our sponsors to hear what they're offering, because we have some amazing sponsors out there. So take it away, sound guy.
Did you know that your favorite Massachusetts breweries use hops from a local family-owned hop farm right here in Massachusetts?
Our friends over at 4-Star Farms are there for you whether you're a commercial brewery or a small batch home brewer.
Make sure to head over to their website today and get your hands on some of the best and freshest hops available locally. Cheers.
At our local homebrew shop, Beer and Wine Hobby, you can get everything you need to make beer, wine, cider, cheese, and more. Not sure where to start? They have knowledgeable staff there to help. Beer and Wine Hobby is family-owned and located in Danvers, Massachusetts. Visit their website, beer-wine.com, and use our promo code Brew Roots for 10% off your online order today.
Shirts on Tap is the box subscription service where you can get some of the dopest brewery t-shirts out there. I'm talking breweries from Dallas, San Diego, and even our home area of New England. And you might ask, how do I get my hands on some? Well, we're here to help you out. By using our promo code Brew Roots, you can get your first box for $5. Tell me where you can get a t-shirt for $5. Oh wait, you can't. But you can today by going over to shirtsontap.com and using our promo code BrewRoots. You get your first box for $5. Remember, drink better beer, wear better shirts. All right, well, thank you to our awesome sponsors. So we're back. I want to know like how your education kind of built the frameworks for your service instead of company. I want to call it service because it really is.
Yeah.
But obviously you cut your teeth before you even had this as an idea.
Yep.
So talk about life before.
Life
Against
before
the grain.
Against the Grain.
Yeah.
Well, it
And
included
eat
a
as
lot
well.
more
Yeah,
sleep, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, after college, I worked for a company called Garbage to Garden, which was a commercial food waste hauler. Oftentimes it'll be referred to as a composter, but really what Garbage to Garden did is they had farmers, local relationships with local farmers to compost food waste that Garbage to Garden collected. So I worked for them for a number of years as their account manager.
And before we go too forward,
Sure.
In Massachusetts or Maine?
That's in Maine.
Cool.
Yep. They do operate in Massachusetts now, but at the time it was just Maine and a little bit of Massachusetts, like the Arlington, Belmont area with some residential work. I was mostly managing the commercial side of things. And through that commercial work, I ended up working with a ton of different breweries to compost their spent grains, and
Pretty good area for breweries in Maine.
big time. Yeah. So we composted a ton, like literal tons of spent grains in Portland. And I just always thought like this stuff is so valuable. Like, why is it being composted, But, and through that, I had this idea to like, let me just preface this by saying I had no idea how breweries operated. I just knew that they like produce spent grains. And my initial idea was called Hops is for Horses, right? Catchy. Makes no fucking sense though.
Yep.
Yeah, horses don't eat hops.
Yeah, no.
Found that out the easy way, thankfully. Yeah, so I had this idea to like buy a vac tanker and put in these big IBC containers at breweries, and they'd fill it up with, I don't know what I was thinking. And so I had this idea, and for the longest time I was like, I'm just going to feed spent grains to horses and hops to horses. I'm going to name it Hops is for Horses, and was just like stuck on this idea. I left Garbage to Garden, waited out a non-disclosure agreement I had with them for a year, worked for myself as a handyman in Portland, which was a lot of fun. Worked like putting in light bulbs for middle-aged women, shirtless.
Yes. That sounds great.
Yeah. But
He put some light bulbs in before. It was great. Before this episode, it was awesome.
and after that, yeah, like lots of bringing in groceries for old people. It's like less of a being a carpenter, like a hardened, talented tradesperson, and more of just like, I'm lonely. Please paint my front deck. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Shirtless gets you an extra $2 an hour. Sweet.
You knew your audience.
Right. Yeah. Totally. And after I waited out my NDA, I got linked up with AgriCycle Energy, which is the company that I work for now. Unfortunately, when COVID first hit in March, I got laid off for a month. And during that month, I was like, I'd never been laid off before. I was kind of
Freaking the fuck
by
out.
it. Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, like, what do I do? And then I realized, like, I would never lay myself off. Like, that just such a basic thing to think, but like, I would never fire myself. Why don't I start my own company? And I decided to take that entire month to just investigate the logistics of hops is for horses, and
You found out it wasn't.
found out it wasn't. Right. I mean, I think in the first 3 days, I was working like 8-hour days just focusing on what is now against the grain.
Yeah.
And I realized in the first 3 days that like horse people are crazy, but also horses don't eat hops. So
and
the
is it
business,
why is it? Is it poisonous? 'Cause it's poisonous for dogs.
it's not, I don't know if it's poisonous. I mean, it's definitely not great for them to be eating hops. That's for sure. They can definitely eat spent grains. But what I realized is horse people in particular are very particular about what they feed their horses. You can't just feed them spent grains picked up from a brewery.
That's because they're like $50,000 animals.
They're super expensive, and the liability is crazy, and it is for farms too, but less so when you're not dealing with like a Chrysler.
Pretty much.
You know what I mean? Like a Chrysler expense
Stallion
of an
or
animal,
whatever.
right?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what else can spent grains go to? So I started really investigating that. Found obviously pigs, cows, chickens, tilapia, turkey, goats. So I started calling those types of farms and got a lot of interest there. Lots of folks wanted it, and was like, well, I know the brewery side of things. I know the waste management side of things. It should be pretty simple for me to source this material. So once I get the farms down, I'll start sourcing the material from breweries. This is like 2 weeks in. I found a partner who linked us up with, he has connections to like 20 different dairy farms throughout New England. Investigated, where spent grains can go outside of horses, or, aside from horses rather. And that coupled with the immense amount of spent grains being produced in New England, I realized really quickly that the easiest solution would be to bring spent grains to dairy farms. In regards to dairy farms, I wrote down 2 quick facts in my notes sheet on my iPhone that kind of drive the point home of like why not only is it the easiest outlet for spent grains in terms of feeding animals, but it's also one of the largest impacts we can have in terms of which sector of livestock we can offset. And the quote says, livestock is the world's largest user of land resources, with pasture and arable land dedicated to the production of feed, representing almost 80% of total agricultural land. 1/3 of global arable land is used to grow feed, while 26% of Earth's ice-free terrestrial surface is used for grazing. Nearly 60% of the world's agricultural land is used for beef production, yet beef accounts for less than 2% of the calories that we consume throughout the world. So for some,
Wow.
yeah, I mean,
That's
it's
huge.
beef is just a massively beef and dairy is just an incredibly energy intensive process. So if we can use spent grains to offset even a small amount of impact that industry has, then I'm all for it. I mean, we can obviously divert these materials to turkey farms or tilapia or salmon farms or wherever, but those types of consumer habits don't have as large of impact as consuming beef or dairy. So I decided to focus on that. And luckily, I met this guy named Bill, who he's like my farm Rob. Rob is like, beer Rob, and then I have farm Rob, which is Bill. The stars really aligned with these 2 guys.
Bill and Rob.
Bill and Rob, yeah, 2 single-syllable white guy names, just like super,
Knowledgeable.
super
Resourceful.
knowledgeable dudes. Yeah, but I mean, they might as well be like one character split in 2, like 2 different universes,
Have
man.
Bill and Rob
Industries.
met?
They've never met.
They need to.
I don't want them to.
I think the world would just end if they did.
I know.
The 2 universes, the
Yeah.
2
I know.
timetables.
It's like 2
it
dimensions.
just
It's
exactly
Collapsing
Yeah.
of 2 stars.
Yeah, couldn't do it.
And Bill connected me with like 20 dairy farms throughout New England. So as we pivot and grow, we can bring spent grains to any farm, any part of New England between Maine and New York. And he has the immediate connection, so it's not a matter of doing,
Introductions or
sales
whatever.
call.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I also don't understand shit about, feeding dairy cows. I don't know anything about that. I can't sell that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can sell that it's a cheap feed and be like, hey, here's this resource for you. But he has the actual knowledge and the data knowledge too to sell our service to those folks.
Yeah.
So it's a great home run.
Yeah. Before we get into more of that, I just want to know, like, how did you and Yeet converse? You know, like, where did your paths cross? And why did your interests spark? Why do you guys work together?
So I studied business administration for my undergrad, and then I was a data analyst for a year. And during that time when I was working, I met Holden playing Ultimate Frisbee. And then we became really good buddies, and Holden actually just told this story. Do you want to continue the story of like
Yeah, because I
our
heard that you
small
guys
debate?
like got in a big argument.
Meeting on Grindr?
Jeez.
No.
No. I mean, we had met in an Ultimate Frisbee game, and we were both like new to the area and found an opportunity to like grow a friendship. And we had a pretty intense gun control debate.
Yeah.
I come from Central Maine, where it's a little bit different than Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And we have different perspectives. Granted, they are relatively aligned, but
Yeah.
how we get there is just a little different. And I think this day and age, when people disagree politically, it's like you can't come back from that a lot of times, right? And like we had this really intense debate, but at the end of it, we just understood each other's perspectives better, which to me was just such an anomaly. Like, holy shit. Like, I don't hate this guy's guts. Like, yeah, let's hang out tomorrow. And that
Yeah.
just like doesn't happen. And I was like, wow. 2 weeks after that, I was driving to and from Florida
Oh,
to
jeez.
save my mom and grandfather amidst hurricane season and COVID.
Yeah.
It was just crazy. I needed to get them out of the state of Florida. Plus, Florida's crazy.
Yes.
They can't be there anymore.
Yeah.
So I rescued them from Florida, brought them up to Maine. But I'm driving down to Florida, and I'm like, well, you would make a really good business partner. Like, if we can disagree on something so fundamental as like Second Amendment arguments,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
what could we also talk through?
Right.
If we can make it through that, like we can definitely talk.
What else can we
business.
disagree on?
Exactly. Like we can recover.
But that's kind of like, I think a lot of people, that just shows to your like business acumen.
Yeah.
That you can get through kind of auxiliary things and be like, yeah, I may not agree on this, but he's a good partner because of. So good for you for realizing that.
Yeah. I think like also like on the whole, this day and age politically, like Second Amendment isn't like the most damning thing to disagree on. Anyways, like there's so much that we do agree on, like 95, 99%, and then the 1% is gun control. But all in all, I was like, holy shit, I need to ask Yeet to be my business partner. And it felt like I was asking like my middle school date to homecoming or something. I like called him.
Also before that, I had helped Holden when he like first started his planning for the company. I was advising him on a lot of the like Excel spreadsheets and like the business plan
So
aspect.
you were already working for Holden before you even knew it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we were spending at least like 2 hours a day. I think there was like a week that we spent like 2 hours a day. But yeah, from then on, he invited me to be his business partner, and I was down for that because I also had like a business administration background as well as I'm a data analyst, so I can help Holden where he needs help the most, I think, and that's why I think we're a good partnership.
Yeah. And, as I said, like I have a really deep understanding of the waste industry, composting, sustainability, organic waste in particular. And it's just a really good match. His side of things being the data analytics, coupled with my industry knowledge and experience with these breweries.
Yeah.
And it's really resulted in a super reliable service, we believe. I mean, having worked in the composting world compost services are really smelly. I've been in the industry for almost a decade now, and no business owner is like waking up early to make sure their dumpster is picked up. Trash and recycling just kind of happens.
Yeah.
Food waste is really under a microscope because a lot of folks view it as an extra expense. Oh, I'm paying for trash recycling and compost.
Yeah.
What we need to realize is that as you move up the sustainable hierarchy, you should see a savings in your costs. You should never see an increase in your costs, and that's because the better usage of the materials that you identify. Let's say you have food waste in your dumpster, and you're exclusively using that dumpster to go to landfill. Landfill has a per ton cost of anywhere between $100 and $120 per ton. If you divert any amount of weight to composting or anaerobic digestion has a per ton rate that's typically half or less than that. So that right there is a savings, and you should see a savings immediately. So something that we've really tried to drive home is that, we've got a reliable service that holds true to that hierarchy. As you start identifying a higher usage for your materials, you should see a savings there.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure to the supply chain we've established does exactly that. And I see that every day.
Yeah. I'm sure all of our brewery friends that are listening are really wondering of the service that you guys offer. And before we get into that, I just want to give one quick shout out to our awesome sponsor. So take it away, Sound Guy Ryan.
Are you a solo artist, band, podcaster, or anyone else who needs recording services?
Well, we got a place for you where your vision can become a reality.
Welcome to Small Pond Studios, built by hand with heart and sweat equity by musicians for musicians.
Go to smallpondstudios.io to reach out to get more information. And make sure you let them know that Brew Roots sent you. Hey, Sound Guy Ryan here. Didn't know if you heard, but we're a part of the Hopped Up Network. There you'll find other informative podcasts about beer. So go ahead, follow them on social media, and visit them on their website, hoppedupnetwork.com, to learn more about the people, beer, and breweries from around the country. And until next time, thanks for listening. Cheers.
All right, major shout out to our awesome sponsor. Thank you for that. But again, we were mentioning, we have a ton of brewers that listen, and we want to know, why should our brewery friends choose your service? Sure. I mean, it's hard for a brewery who is a small system to maybe make those sustainable choices. And why should they make them early on in the process, or maybe even later into the process?
Yeah, I think, first off, every brewery has like a farmer story of when they used to work with a farm and then they had to switch and it was a debacle or whatever. And that, we really want to drive home that that's like no fault of the farmers at all. A farmer farms, a brewer brews, and oftentimes what happens with the spent grains is completely circumstantial. Sometimes, we've encountered breweries that have that one employee who, loads 600 pounds of spent grains into the back of their Subaru Outback and drives an hour and a half one way to a farm to drop it off.
Yeah.
And, they're not paid to do that. They're just doing it out of the kindness of their heart because they know that material is valuable, or, they've worked with a farmer for 30 years and they've only exclusively worked with them. And that's a great system for them. We don't expect those folks to have that great system to change by any means.
Yeah.
And, we're not looking to necessarily rip spent grains out of that farmer's feed line. We want to make sure that those relationships are strong, because
preserved.
that's right. I mean, that's the goal of our company, is to create those types of circular economies. But what we want to do is create a lower barrier to entry for farms that might not have the infrastructure to do what, have a dedicated truck to go pick up spent grains and bring them to their farm, or, because it is very labor intensive. Oftentimes they need a forklift. If they don't have a forklift, they need to hand lug 55-gallon drums into the back of their pickup. And when they get to the farm, they need to, have a way to get them off the pickup. The infrastructure that we've invested in is completely tailored around spent grains. So we have a a truck that can carry up to 6 tons at a time. It's a tote system, so we supply totes for our partners. The totes get filled up with spent grains, and they leave them out. We have we're picking up at least twice a week from our partners. The reason we do that is because that cuts down on the amount of likelihood that the spent grains will go bad. So at minimum, we're picking up the spent grains twice a week. And I think every brewery that has some kind of process for spent grains recognizes that those containers stink. They smell bad, they get gross. So we've also invested in a pressure washing system that is connected to our truck that sprays the totes while they're upside down on our truck. That way, no runoff water is getting frozen in their driveway or whatever.
Definitely.
Spent grains are getting sprayed all over customers' cars, what have you. The service also takes place pretty early in the morning. One, to beat Boston traffic for the folks who are downtown.
Definitely.
But also because it's just easier for customers that way. We don't want people to have to, with everybody sitting outside right now, to see, there's all their spent grains being dumped out. Like, what is that whole process? It's kind of gross. So that's how we're working with that. In terms of the reliability of our process, like I said, we have like 20 farm partners that we can choose from. So if, this is something that's been pretty common, is we've experienced breweries that, at the end of the week, they contact their farmer, hey, come pick up. And they say, I don't need it.
Gotcha.
I don't need it this week.
Yeah.
And to a farmer to a brewer, that really sucks.
Yeah.
Because, it's
now what do I do with all this?
Exactly. Who do I call? Do I call another farmer?
Yeah.
Do I have to build that relationship? And it's a whole process. So oftentimes it'll end up in a dumpster, and when I go back to talking about that per ton cost of $110 a ton, it can be pretty expensive.
That adds up pretty quick. Yeah.
Exactly.
For sure.
Or they can call a composter, but there's still a cost per ton for that material if it goes through a composter. And it's also not the best use that way. So if, God forbid, we call Farmer Joe or Farm A and they say, we don't need it this week. Well, we've got Farm
19 other farms.
B through Z.
Yeah.
We're never going to say, we can't take it this week. And, if we do have any issues with reliability, we have backup trucks. If for whatever reason our trucks get nuclear bombed,
You never know.
They all get struck by lightning and blow up.
And it is a brand new truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It's state of the art. It's sealed. It's not going to be leaking. It's completely tailored around my experience with composters through my 10 years of experience in the food waste world. Mm-hmm. If, God forbid, those trucks blow up for whatever reason, through my experience in the industry, we have a network of other waste haulers, organic waste haulers, that can bring them to compost sites.
Yeah.
So there really is never going to be a scenario where their spent grains are going to a landfill.
You also
Never.
have plans A through Z.
Exactly. Outside of our own service.
Yeah.
So,
Continuity.
yeah, exactly. And we're building this business in phases. So we've connected with Regrained from the West Coast, who do like puffs, they do chips. You guys should really connect with them. They're a great group of folks. What they do is they create products for human consumption made from spent grains.
Oh,
and
cool.
That's the trajectory of our company.
Yep.
We're looking to partner with folks like Regrained and other companies that are using spent grains to feed humans, because we realize that while we have this really awesome base to bring the majority of our spent grains to, we would like to see that material be diverted to human consumption in the future.
Yeah.
So our partners can almost guarantee that as they grow with us, they'll see, their spent grains being diverted to human consumption in the future, having an even bigger impact, which is huge.
Spent grains are delicious, for those who don't know.
They are. Yeah. So I, through AgriCycle, I had a partner at Cambridge Brewing Company. And I got to tour their facility, and we were, looking around. I was looking at the material they were producing, and this is right before I got laid off.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, I work with AgriCycle now. I was only laid off for a very brief period of time. They have been great. They've been awesome mentors in this process, for, especially the logistics and operational side of things, and really supportive of what we're doing, and looking into partnerships in terms of, them looking at which breweries they're working with and saying, hey, your material is better used with Against the Grain, who we've partnered with. They've really looked at that option too, throughout New England, which has been great. but I was touring Cambridge Brewing Company, and the guy that was giving me the tour was like, "Hey, take a handful of those spent grains and just put them in your mouth." I was like, I don't know, but I didn't, and that was like a moment that it really clicked for me. It was like, holy shit, this business idea that I've been thinking of for years now and like losing sleep over is even more realistic.
Yeah.
Like, I literally just took spent grains and put them in my mouth and chewed them and ate them.
It was delicious.
It was delicious.
Hops aren't for horses, but they're for humans.
Right. And so I was like,
Not
damn,
hops.
I got to do this. And
It's like eating oatmeal in the morning.
yeah, I mean, it really is.
It
And-
tasted like that. I ate some too
Yeah.
at Lamplighter.
Yeah, I
in
convinced.
Cambridge.
Yeah. We've been talking to Kayla and those folks over
Cool.
at Lamplighter. Great team over there. And yeah, I had yeet. I was like, yo, put those in your mouth. And you could see he's like,
Yeah.
but he did, and it's like it really does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's like oatmeal.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, the service is pretty simple. You fill up the totes that we supply for you. You put them outside. We pick them up twice a week. We empty those totes in our truck, clean them out, put them down, and you use them like
Easy
that.
enough. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
I mean, and some of our partners are doing, they're going to be doing 5 times a week service.
Cool.
So if you're in a certain part of Massachusetts, we can do that. We're really not exclusive to the Boston area. We're working with Essex Brewing,
Yeah, in PBD.
PBD, yeah.
PBD. I mean, we're all the way up there. We're looking at folks in Drake. We've been communicating with folks almost all the way to Worcester. So
Nice. Nice.
we've got a pretty big footprint already, and the economics work out pretty easily for us now.
Awesome.
How it works is we subsidize our hauling costs to make it as competitive and cheap as possible
Yeah.
by selling the spent grains to local farms.
Right.
So
right.
we sell it at a reduced rate that is a savings for the farmers. They don't have to invest in trucking, any infrastructure.
Yeah,
they don't have to
nothing.
take any
Yeah.
time off.
That's
of
how you
their day.
offset it. Yeah.
That's how we offset it, and we make it incredibly competitive when compared to landfill or composting for that reason.
Yeah.
Another thing that I said pretty early on is everybody has that farm story where, we worked with a farmer who picked this up in his like 86 Silverado every day. And again, that's no fault of their own. We want to create a lower barrier to entry to those
Yeah,
folks.
make it a little easier for everyone.
Exactly. So we can allow them to opt in and buy spent grains from us at a really cheap rate that saves them money on what their feedstocks are already. That offsets the cost of us driving the truck out there and servicing breweries, et cetera. So it really is a circular economy business.
So now, what about some of the larger breweries? 'Cause I know there's some that already have something in place where they have a big tank or whatever where they are already putting their spent grain.
Yeah.
Do they now have to completely change and use your totes, or can you
That's a
get the
great
grains
question.
from them that way? Or
Yeah. So that's something we've encountered actually quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, in total transparency, we all know the IRS tracks every gallon of alcohol that's produced in the
Right.
United States. So really early on, I requested that data from the IRS,
Mm-hmm.
and we indicated that, okay, well, here's our most likely partner. And
Yeah.
there was about 100 breweries in that
Okay.
group.
Cool,
We've
cool.
reached out to most of them. And there was another 10 that were just what we considered out of our league.
yeah,
But what we realized pretty quickly is that they're not actually out of our league. And those breweries sometimes are contracting folks to bring those spent grains out of state.
gotcha.
Because they don't have the network that we have to bring those spent grains to local farms.
Yeah.
They have to bring them to Connecticut, or, I've heard of folks bringing it as far out as Philly.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, damn, it's great that you have that solution in place, but let's keep those spent grains local.
right.
And at the very least, folks can just see what we're capable of. They can
Definitely.
see, okay, what's the cost comparison? And not just that, but what's the environmental offset of, instead of having a 52-foot tractor trailer driving from my brewery out
Right.
to Connecticut,
Right.
what is it to drive 20 miles north once a day?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty big offset in that
Of course.
regard.
Yeah.
And
And environmental offset.
Yeah.
huge, yeah. And most farms in this region are experiencing a pretty severe drought. So, they're really hurting for these grains.
For sure.
And how the process works is that we come to after you fill out the form in our website, which is againstthegrainne.com, we come to your site and we do a pre-processing and see how we can solve your disposal of the grains. And if we see that it's fit for our infrastructure, we give you a quote, and it's a fixed quote, and it doesn't change based on like if you're producing more grains than you did like 3 months ago, the cost does not change. So it's not a
Correct.
per ton cost. It's based on the
Per
number
visit.
of the number of visits and the number of totes that we are going to be
Yep.
hauling.
Yep, it's
Wow.
just time it
Nice.
takes to get there, time on site.
Yeah,
We're only charging
yeah.
for that because we're selling the spent grains. We're not charging like a composter would
Right,
for
right.
that per tonnage. We're
Yeah.
completely avoiding that.
Yeah.
So we're only looking to offset our hauling, which is then subsidized.
So it's re-envisioning composting or
Correct.
yeah.
Right. And, you can do both. I mean, you can connect with a composter for your front, your kitchen food waste, save money in that regard. If 90% of what you're producing is spent grains,
Yeah.
you really shouldn't be composting your spent grains if you can help it. Just from a cost, not even like environmentally, just economically, it should be a cost savings, to work with us as opposed to composter or throwing in the trash because of that per ton rate. We're completely avoiding that. So, just going back to your question about what do these larger breweries have to gain by working with us is, just fill out the form on our website and find out. We'll do a
Yeah.
site visit, see what we're capable of. But oftentimes, that infrastructure they have on site, we want to complement that. We
Yeah.
don't really want to reinvent the wheel because these breweries have pretty high-tech processes. They
Right.
only are built to work the way that they're built. So we need to accommodate that. And the way that we've invested in our infrastructure is to do just that. We want to make sure that if they have a chute system, a truck shows up, they spend an hour on site,
Yeah.
and the spent grain should just fall into the bed of the truck. We want to be able to do that. So our truck is actually designed to be able to,
Cool.
to do that. Now we max out at about 6 tons a day
Yeah.
per brewery. So let's say they're doing 6 tons a week. We'd want to pick up 3 times a week or twice a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we can also do multiple routes a day. So
Totally.
that can go from 6 tons a day to 12, 18.
Right. We could visit twice in a day.
Yeah.
We could
Yeah.
visit 3 times in a day. And as we grow as a business, who knows? We might have that 52-foot box truck
Right.
that we can then fill, but keeping that focus on locally sourcing
Yeah.
these grains to farmers
Yeah.
is always going to be our focus.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I just want to know, why would a smaller brewery who's trying to cut, costs, early on, it's hard to open a brewery. There's a ton of costs associated with it.
For sure.
Would choose your services. It's a risk.
Yeah.
When I could make X amount more liquid, so that could get in the mouth of people, and then make a sustainable choice.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it kind of goes back to that hierarchy of waste that I was talking about previously. The way we've created the business is to be able to be complementary to those folks. To add, as you climb up the food waste hierarchy, you should see a savings. It should never be really an additional cost because those grains are going to go somewhere. If someone's like, well, I could save money by putting it in my dumpster. Could you really? Because I don't think so. And at the very least, let's compare. Where are we hauling wise? Are we close? Are we nearby? Get a quote from us. You can find out. But, to have a dumpster on site, knowing that those spent grains are going to go to landfill at $120 per ton, or it can go to a farm with a, 0 cost per ton, right there, it should be an economic savings for you. That said, we have gotten reached out to by, folks like Anonymous Brewing, for example. That was actually one of the first breweries that reached out to us. They're like, hey, I'm doing 5 gallons of spent grains a week. And I was like, well, we're not right there just yet. You're a little bit north.
Yeah.
You'd probably be paying for more hauling than you would just be disposal.
Right.
And for that amount, you could just do a backyard composting operation.
Yeah.
Or get a composting bucket from a company like Black Earth Compost and do, curbside composting or garbage to garden, for example. You could do that. And that would be a sustainable usage. It's being composted rather than landfilled. But that said, we've also played with the idea of doing drop-off locations for small, at-home home brewers who maybe they're producing 20 tons in a week, 20 gallons in a week. And
Yeah.
they're like, well, this isn't really enough to justify having Against the Grain come to my house.
Right.
But if there's a consolidation point where I can share, a container with 10 other home brewers, that might make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something we've played with too.
Cool.
If anybody out there would be interested in hosting a drop-off site, let us know.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
It's something that I've really been thinking of and folks have reached out to me about. So
You are partnered up with a couple of breweries right now, but you guys aren't the light's not green yet for you guys.
Correct.
When are you guys going to be rolling out in operational
March 1st,
of 2021?
2021.
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, it's right around the corner, really.
Yeah, I know
sure.
at this
Yeah.
point. Yeah, yeah.
It's honestly kind of frightening.
So I'm sure that a ton of our brewery friends are listening for the first time and finding out about your company. So I want to know where they can best reach out to you guys. And obviously we're going to put that in the link below. So you don't have to get your pen and paper out right now, but it'll be in the link below. And we're all on smartphones. You just have to click the link. But like,
Super easy.
yeah, where can we get some of our brewery friends partnered up with you guys?
Sure. You can shoot me an email at holden@againstthegrainne.com
Cool.
or yeet@againstthegrain.com. That's YIGIT @againstthegrain.com. Go to our website, fill out our brewery partner form.
Social media as well.
Social
Against
media,
Grain.
yeah, we're on Instagram. We've kind of strayed away from Facebook. I don't,
Yeah.
It's hard. It's a hard
I don't-
cookie to crack.
Facebook's
I don't
weird.
really like it.
I don't like
Facebook.
Twitter,
I don't know.
but that's all right.
To note, by the way, the website's link again is againstthegrainne.com, and there's a brewery partner form
Yes.
where you can put in all the information, how much you brew, and you don't necessarily have to know how much grains you produce. We can convert that value from how much you brew, basically, in barrels.
Correct. Yeah, we want to do a site visit, just check it out, see what specific challenges you might have on site, things that we might have to adapt to, etc. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Instagram, email, our website. Farmers who are listening as well. I mean, we have a farmer partnership form as well, which is pretty much like the other side of the coin because at the end of the day, that's a big focus of our business too. Is
Definitely.
really strengthening the supply chain. So if any farmers are listening, same goes for you. There's a farmers partner form. Fill that out. We can see where you're at on our route and let us know how much spent grains you need, and we can make it happen. At least in Massachusetts, I'm going to get this wrong. I know I'm going to get this wrong, but there's 212 breweries in Massachusetts alone.
I think you're close.
You're pretty close, I think.
Rob just schooled me on this last week.
Yeah.
I said 180 and he was like,
No.
Nah,
Yeah,
nah,
we're
no,
definitely
it's
like
north of 200.
220 or so.
220? Okay.
Yeah.
There's 220 breweries in
Sure,
Massachusetts.
yeah.
There's enough to go around.
Yeah.
There really is enough spent grains to go around. And again, there's all you got to do is reach out to get the information you need to have on hand. There's no, you're not signing a contract with getting
You don't have to
information
call
from
anyone.
us. Right. And we're not going to take your social security number and credit card.
Yeah.
All you got to do is reach out to us and get a quote and see if it makes sense for your company and your location.
Cool.
I want to say 99% of people will, but I
never know.
can't say it'll work out for everybody. But I think the way we've created the business, it really should be. It's a circular economy, and we hold true to that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, you guys are very smart in the industry. I'm pumped to have you guys part of the brewing community
Yeah,
here in
yeah.
Massachusetts because I really do think sustainability is not a taboo subject, but it's a subject that's not often discussed because people equate it to being more expensive. So I'm glad that we kind of erased that stigma here on this episode today. And I'm excited to see what's happening March with you guys. It's just right around the corner. So make sure that if you are a brewery or if you're a home brewer and you want to start that kind of community, reach out to these guys because they're not in it to just kind of screw you over. They really believe in the
Making a
sustainability,
difference.
and the making a difference with it. So Holden and Yigit, I appreciate you guys doing this. Make sure you check out the website. You said it so well, so I'm going to have you say it again. The website?
It's againstthegrainne.com, and you can check out our breweries partners form and farmers partners form.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So make sure it's just, if you are a smaller brewery or a larger brewery, because we know you're listening. We know you're
We know
listening, Jim
it.
Cook. We know it, Jim. We know you're out there.
You're on our list.
Biggest fan, we know.
We know you're the biggest fan, but reach out to them because it's
important.
It's important.
And
Definitely.
get some information.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for doing this
Totally.
tonight. We do appreciate it. You drove all the way from Boston, so
Thank
we're
you.
going to drink more beer with you. I know we were drinking some Springdale stuff earlier, but Ryan's got some goodies in his beer fridge, and yeah,
Until next time.
Thank you.
cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks so much, everybody.
All right, everyone. Thank you for making it this far in the episode. And you know what that means. Ryan has a little secret to tell us. Ryan, take it away.
I like beer.
Oh, we punked you again. There's no secret this week, but next week there might be a secret.
There might be a secret.
Shout out to our friends Holden and Yigit.
Yeah, it was a great interview. Super solid information. I certainly learned quite a bit.
And I want to taste some spent grains.
I really want to taste some spent grains. I remember, I've had some spent grains from like homebrew stuff.
Yep.
I've had it from some of the, breweries that we've been to when we did our collab 100th episode beer. I had spent grains, and I want them in a really nice, sweet, yummy treat.
Agreed.
That's all I want.
So
Fuck the animals. I want it.
no, we gotta support the animals too. But if you want to help support Against the Grain New England, make sure to check out their website below. And if you're a brewery or a home brewer that's interested in maybe like a local drop-off or something like that, they're looking into that. So pretty cool information right there. So, Ryan, should we announce next week's guest?
Nope. I think we should just leave it there and say goodbye, farewell, see you next week.
I would say the same thing. So, nope, goodbye, farewell, and see you next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.